Hi, welcome to a video. I'm Rachel Gold with Ingenuity Marketing Group, and I have with me today Alan Sykes of Sykes & Company. And we're going to talk today about some of the most common mistakes of independent pharmacies. We have three common mistakes. Now, Alan, do you want to talk about the first mistake that you see most often when you start working with independent pharmacies?
Well, good morning, Rachel. Just to relate to you, I just got off a phone conversation with a gentleman, a pharmacist in Wyoming, very early this morning, and the base issue or problem there is he lacks a fundamental accounting system, and he's running a $5 million pharmacy. He has not a clue where he stands for 2012. So the number one issue we try to deal with, and it seems fundamental, and it is make sure that a pharmacist knows exactly where they stand month in, month out with reliable numbers, because actually he had numbers, but they weren't reliable at all. He was essentially using his QuickBooks file as a check writer, thinking he had an accounting system, and he did not. So that's the number one issue we run into constantly. And then, of course, we take that and try to refine it into a system for clients. Pharmacy clients using cloud-based products centered around QuickBooks. But that's the number one issue we run into.
So it sounds like these systems, it's not necessarily something that the pharmacy owner is going to be unfamiliar with because it's still based in QuickBooks, but it's going to be set up so that they can see where they stand day in, day out.
Correct. In this instant case here, he had purchased the pharmacy. He got outside financing, and they require quarterly financial statements from the institution that provided the financing. And he did the best he could as a pharmacist, as a young guy, buying a very vibrant, active pharmacy that did about 250 scripts a day. And he just came in and started writing checks and recording information as best he could. Didn't really have any help in that process. And essentially what we do is we come in, take that base information he has, clean it up, put it in the cloud, continue to run it on QuickBooks, teach him what he needs to do daily and weekly, and then at month end. And, of course, that leads into the proactive parts with the planning and comparing what his store is doing with the other peer groups and NCPA norms, et cetera. But it's just that fundamental and that basic. And that's the number one issue we run into right there.
That doesn't sound too painful to set up. So then
it really isn't. Once you get that beyond, kind of behind you, that's the major aspect.
Great. So then once that's in place, tell me what's the second most common mistake that you see?
The next most common mistake, which is tied to this aspect, is not knowing what your gross margins are at the script counter, what your number one. And number two, not knowing what your payroll and payroll benefits are vis-a-vis your total aggregate revenue. Those two items right there alone make the largest difference in the profitability or lack thereof of any pharmacy. So once you have those fundamentals in place, and once you know where you stand and you can rely on your numbers on an accurate basis, then you begin fine-tuning those gross margins at the counter. And you may say, well, I'm a pharmacist, and third-party payers pay us whatever they do, and I have little or no control over that. Well, that's correct in that you have some limitations on what third-party companies will pay you for your third-party scripts, but you have a lot of control at that script counter at how things are priced, whether things are switched from brand to generic, et cetera. And those things, along with whatever payroll that you're running for that particular location, have a tremendous impact on the profitability or lack thereof of the stores, and in turn your cash flow. And those are some very large issues we constantly run into and try to refine further.
And can you talk a little bit about, I think when you talk on the number side, it can sound a little daunting and intimidating. And certainly your clients, they don't have to find those numbers themselves, right? You're coming up with, here are the numbers you need to look at. Here's what they mean. Tell me a little bit about that process.
Yeah. Once we get the fundamental processes down pat, and we like to get a copy of the month-end script audit reports from the script counter computer systems that are available for all the pharmacies. then we can begin to take those numbers and drill down on those script reports to see exactly what the makeup is of the revenue they're generating at a particular location. And we can take that particular location and the number of scripts they're producing, the section of the country they're in, and kind of compare that with what their peers are doing, what some of the national trends are, and be able to let them know where they stand vis-a-vis what we're seeing across this country. And what NCPA is also saying that those numbers should be. They've got a lot more control over that than they believe that they do. They have tremendous control over whether they pick up the phone and call a doc and ask for a brand change to a generic. They may not feel like they have time to do that, but that is so very important in increasing generic percentages of scripts filled, because the margins on generics are so far in excess of what the 7 or 8% margins they get on brands are. And when you start doing hundreds and thousands of scripts a month, hundreds daily and thousands monthly, it can make all the difference in the world in that cash flow and profitability of that store.
I bet that sounds like a huge difference. And that kind of leads into the number 3 mistake that we talked about, which was, being able to take action. So can you say a little bit more about how you work hand in hand with the pharmacy owners to make these changes?
Well, let me just kind of continue on from what I just had mentioned. In that gross margin script audit summary log kind of analysis that we do month in and month out, when we see that pharmacists are having issues, we have a number of outside specialists or consultants that we work with across the country that are specialists in helping a pharmacy fine-tune those margins further and update their formulas in their pricing computers to make sure that they are getting that another 1 to 2 to 3 percentage points in gross margin out of that $4 or $5 million average store. And 2 percentage points on a $5 million store is $100,000 a year. And you may say, well, I can't do it. Yeah, you can. There are folks out there that do nothing but this. We're not somebody that does that, but we know who folks are that do these kinds of things. And there's specialists out there that are pharmacists that are working on an ongoing basis to understand and to know what those script formulas need to be and to fine-tune them in all the pharmacist computers and to make sure that they're optimizing that process. And that is the single largest issue that I see, because margins are so tight right now. And every 1 percentage point of aggregate revenue makes such a tremendous difference in the cash flow and bottom line.